Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to play a fingerstyle arrangement of the song Golden from the K-pop Demon Hunters movie. So let's get into it. So this song might be a little challenging for some of you because of how fast it is. Try to learn it really slow and practice it really slow at a lower tempo, and in some time you will be able to play it at original speed. In this video, I'm going to cover the intro, the verse, first half and second half, and the pre-chorus. The chorus and everything else are on a separate part 2 video available on my Patreon page. Also, all the tabs for this lesson are available there as well. If you want them, check out the link down below. It really helps support my channel. So let's start with the first part, which is the intro. It sounds like this. So here we have a repeating pattern which sounds like this. You start off by holding this chord. You have the 3rd fret of the 5th string and the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. On the right hand, you start by playing this. So you plug the 5th string and the 3rd string together first, and then you plug just the 3rd string right after, like that. And then you have this part. So here you're playing the open 2nd string, and then you're playing the 5th string after that, and then you're repeating. So you're playing the 2nd string, 5th string, and then the 2nd string, 5th string again, like that. So if you add this to the previous part, altogether you get this. One more time, really slow. And then you have this part. While holding on to this chord, you add your index finger onto the 1st fret of the 2nd string, play that note, and pull off to the open 2nd string, like that. And right after this pull off, you have this part. So here you're playing the bass note, the 5th string, then you're plucking 3rd string and pulling off from the 2nd fret here to the open 3rd string. And after the pull off, you play the open 3rd string again, like that. So altogether, from the pull off on the 2nd string, you have this. One more time, really slow. And if you add this with the previous part, altogether you get this. One more time. So before you start learning the next few chords, stop and just practice this first pattern that you learned. Try to play it repeatedly in a loop a few times. So just take the first pattern and repeat that. So once you get used to the picking pattern, playing the next few chords become really easy because the only thing that's changing is the bass note. So the bass note is the note that you're playing with the thumb on the right hand. So the first chord was based on a C major chord, so the bass note was the 5th string. The second chord is based on a G major chord. So now you have the 3rd fret of the 6th string as the bass note. The rest of the parts are exactly the same. The rest of the right hand pattern is exactly the same. So the first time around you played this on the first chord, and on the second chord you're just playing the bass note. You have this note here, and now you play this. So you see there, everything else is exactly the same, only the bass note is changing. So this is the second chord. Now if you play it back to back from the first chord to the second chord, you get this. And then on the third chord you have this. So here the bass note is just the open 4th string. The chord is based on a D major chord. And everything else is exactly the same. And on the last chord, the 4th chord, you have the open 6th string as the bass note. I'll play that again. Now if you play all the first 4 chords back to back, you have this. And then you repeat the first 3 chords. And then you play this. So here you're plucking the open 6th string and the 2nd fret of the 4th string together. I'm holding the 2nd fret here of the 4th string with the middle finger, and on the right hand I'm plucking the 6th and 4th string, like that. And right after that you just have to slap and mute the chord, like that. So I'm slapping my thumb onto the lower strings and muting the chord along with that. So that's the whole intro. I'll play the whole thing once just to recap. It sounds like this. And after that we have the verse. Let's start with the first half of the verse. It sounds like this. So on the left hand, we just need to hold down the note on the 3rd fret of the 5th string with the ring finger. On the right hand, we start by playing this. You start by plucking the 5th string, then you pluck the open 3rd string, and then you slap and ring the open 3rd string, like that. And then you hammer on with your middle finger onto the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, like that. So if you don't know that technique where you're playing the open 3rd string with the slap, like that, I'll try to explain it really briefly. This is called the slap and strum technique. I'm using this motion with my index finger to play the note, to play the 3rd string, using this motion. And at the same time, I'm slapping my thumb onto the lower strings to create that percussive sound. You have to do both of them at once together, and you get that. So right after the slap, you do the hammer on onto the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and then you play the open 2nd string right after that, like that. And after that you have this part. So here you're plucking the bass note, the 5th string, and the open 2nd string together first, and then you're playing the bass note again. So you're playing the 5th string 2 times like that. Once with the 2nd string and once on its own, like that. And then again, just like the last time, you slap and ring the open 3rd string and hammer onto the 2nd fret. And after that you play the open 2nd string. So altogether you get this. And if you add this with the previous part, you get this altogether. One more time, really slow. And then you change the chord and play this. So here you're changing to the G major chord. Here you need to hold down the 3rd fret of the 6th string with the thumb like that. On the right hand you have to play this. You first start by plucking the 6th string, the open 3rd string and the 2nd string all together. And then you play the bass note again, the 6th string, like that. And after that you slap and ring the open 3rd string. And then you add your middle finger onto the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and play that note. So all together. And in the end you add a bass note. So you play the 6th string again. And after that you have this. So there you're slapping your thumb onto the lower strings to create that percussive sound. And then you have this. Here you're playing the open 3rd string 2 times. And make sure while playing that you're using 2 different fingers on the right hand to play that. Instead of plucking the 3rd string with 1 finger 2 times like that, try to alternate between the middle finger and the index finger on the right hand. This will make it a lot easier to play it at higher speeds, like that. So if you add this to the previous part on the G major chord, you get this so far. One more time, really slow. And then you have this part. So right after you play the 3rd string 2 times, you're changing the chord to this, which is a portion of a D major chord. Here you need to hold down the note on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. And on the right hand you plug the open 4th string, which is now the bass note, and the 3rd string together. And right after you plug the chord, you play the open 4th string again, like that. Then you add a slap. And then you add your middle finger onto the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and play that note. And then you play the open 4th string in the end, like that. And then you change the chord to this. So right after playing this, you add a slap, like that. And then you have this. So here you're adding your ring finger onto the 4th fret of the 4th string, and on the right hand you're plucking the open 3rd string and then the 4th string, like that. And then you have this. So here you're plucking the open 6th string and the 4th string together and sliding down from the 4th fret to the 2nd fret. So all together you get that. And right after sliding down, you have this part where you're slapping and ringing these 2 strings, the 4th string and the open 3rd string, and then playing the bass note again, the open 6th string, like that. So you get this. And then in the end you add this part. So here you're adding your little finger onto the second fret of the first string, and on the right hand you're playing this, where you're plucking the open third string, the open second string, and the first string, and you play them with a roll like that. Then you lift this finger up and play the open first string. Then you add a slap, like that. Then you add your little finger onto the third fret of the first string and play that note. So altogether, if you play the whole thing on the E minor chord, you get this. One more time. So just to recap, I'll play it once again from the very beginning till this point. So from the start of the verse. And then you repeat this part. And then you have this new part. So over there what you play on the first two chords are exactly the same. And then you have this part. So here you start off by just holding the note on the second fret of the third string. On the right hand you start off by playing this. It's just like the last time, you plug the chord, the open fourth string and the third string together. Then you plug just the fourth string and then you add a slap. Like that. And then you bring the rest of the notes of the D major chord. So you're adding the third fret of the second string and the second fret of the first string. And you play it like this. So you plug the chord, the third, second and first string all together. Then you plug the open fourth string. Then you lift this finger up, the middle finger, so now you have the open first string. And you plug the third, second and first strings all together again. Then you add this finger back in and slap and ring the chord. So there you're slapping and ringing the third, second and first strings. Like that. So altogether you get this. One more time. And then you have this part. So there you're just lifting up the index finger from the D major chord. So now you have the third fret of the second string and the second fret of the first string. You start by playing the first string. Then you pluck the open sixth string. And then you lift this finger up. So now you have the open first string. And on the right hand you plug the open third string, the second string and the open first string together. So you're plucking these three together like that. Then you're adding your middle finger back onto the second fret and you're slapping and ringing the chord. The open third string, second string and the first string. Like that. So you get this. One more time. And then you have this. So here you're plucking the open sixth string and the first string together. And then you're pulling off from the second fret to the open first string. Like that. So all together. One more time. And if you play it from the D major chord, you get this. So that's the entire first half of the verse. I'll play the whole thing once again just to recap. It sounds like this. After that we have the second half of the verse, which sounds like this. So right after you played the last part of the first verse, right after that pull off, now you have this. So you start with this part. Here your ring finger is already on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and on the right hand you play this. So here you're plucking the 2nd string, and then you're slapping and ringing the open 3rd string and the 2nd string. Like that. And now you change the chord to this. So here you have a variation of a C major chord. So the way you change to this chord is right after playing this part with the ring finger. Then you add your little finger onto the 5th fret of the 1st string and play that note like that. Then you bring in these two fingers, the notes on the 3rd fret of the 5th string and the 3rd fret of the 2nd string with the middle finger, which is replacing the ring finger previously. So right after playing the note on the 1st string, then you pluck the bass note, the 5th string, and then you pluck the open 3rd string, the 2nd string and the 1st string all together. Like that. Like that. And right after playing this part, then you slap and ring this part of the chord, the 3rd and 2nd string. So all together you get this. Then you pluck the 1st string, and then you play the bass note, the 5th string. And then you repeat this part, which you started this with, where you're plucking the 2nd string, and then you're slapping and ringing the open 3rd string and the 2nd string. So you get this all together. One more time. And now you change the chord to this. Here you're just changing the bass note from the 3rd fret of the 5th string to the 3rd fret of the 6th string. So here after changing the chord you have this new part. So here you're holding the 3rd fret of the 6th string, the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and the 5th fret of the 1st string. On the right hand you pluck the 1st string, then you pluck the bass note, the 6th string. And after that you pluck the open 3rd string, the 2nd string and the 1st string together. Then you slap and ring this part of the chord, the open 3rd string and the 2nd string. And after that you play the 1st string, and then you play the bass note, the 6th string, and then you change the chord to this, and you slap and ring the chord. So here you have the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and the 3rd fret of the 1st string, and on the right hand you slap and ring these 3 strings, the open 3rd string, the 2nd string and the 1st strings all together. You play them with the slap. So you get this all together on the G major chord. One more time, really slow. So just to recap, I'll play it once again from the start till this point. And then you have this part. So here you're changing to this chord, which is a variation of the D major chord. You have the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and the 5th fret of the 1st string. So right after playing that last part where you slap and ring the chord, then you change to this chord. So you already had this finger from the last chord. You just add in these two in place. On the right hand, you start off by playing this. So you start by playing the chord with a roll. You play the fourth string, which is open, the third, second and first strings together with a roll like that. And after that you play just the first string. And then you add a slap, just a regular slap. You're not playing any notes with the slap. Like that. And then you play the first string again. So altogether you get this. One more time. And then you have this part. So here you're plucking the open fourth string and the first string together. Then you're plucking just the first string. And then you're adding a slap. And then you're playing the first string again. And if you play it with the previous part, you get that. I'll play it again. And then you have this part. So right after playing the part on the D major chord, you have your little finger on the 5th fret of the first string, and now you plug the open 6th string and the first string together and slide up from the 5th fret to the 7th fret. And right after the slide, you slap and ring this part of the chord, the 3rd and 2nd strings. Both of them are open, like that. Then you play the bass note, the open 6th string, and then you play the first string. So you get this. And make sure this last note, you play it for a very short duration. You just play it and then mute the note. Like that. So from the very beginning we have this so far. And then you have this part. So you start off the same way. What you played on the first chord is exactly the same. And then on the second chord you have this part. So here you have this chord, which was the second chord previously as well. You have the 3rd fret of the 6th string, the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and the 5th fret of the first string. You start off by playing this. Here you're plucking the 2nd string and then you're slapping and ringing this part of the chord, the open 3rd string and the 2nd string. Like that. And then you pluck the first string and then the bass note, the 6th string. And then you plug the open 3rd string, the 2nd string and the first string together. Like that. And then in the end you slap and ring this part of the chord, the open 3rd string and the 2nd string. So you get this all together. And then you have this part. So here you're plucking the open 6th string and the note on the 5th fret of the first string and sliding up till the 7th fret. And then you're adding a slap where you're slapping and ringing the 3rd string and the 2nd string, these two. Both of them are open. So you get this all together. One more time, really slow. And then after that you have this part. So here you have this type of the D major chord again. You have the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and the 5th fret of the first string. So you start off by playing this. Start by playing the chord with a roll. And then you play the first string. Then you add a slap. And then you play the first string again, just like the last time. And then you have this part. So there you're playing this. Here you start by plucking the open 4th string and the 1st string together. Then you change to this note on the 1st string, the 3rd fret of the 1st string. You're holding that with your ring finger. Play that note and then add a slap. Like that. And then you change the position of the index finger and you change it to the 2nd fret of the 1st string and play that note. So altogether you get this. Like that. And then you have this part. So here you have this chord where you're holding the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and the 2nd fret of the 1st string. On the right hand you plug the open 6th string, the open 3rd string, the 2nd string and the 1st strings all together. And then you pull off from the 2nd fret of the 1st string to the open 1st string. And immediately after that you mute the note. Like that. And after the mute you add a slap in the end. Like that. And right after that you do this where you're playing the note on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and slide up till the 5th fret, and then you do this. So here you're playing the bass note, the open 6th string, then you're playing the 2nd string, and then you're slapping and ringing these two, the 2nd string and the open 1st string. Like that. So if you play it with the previous part altogether, you get this. So that's the entire second half of the verse. I'll play the whole thing once again just to recap. It sounds like this. After that we have the pre-chorus, which sounds like this. So this part is probably the easiest part in the whole arrangement because you don't have any percussion. So you start off with this part. So here, this is based on a C major chord. You start by just holding the notes on the 3rd fret of the 5th string and the 2nd fret of the 4th string. On the right hand, you plug the 5th string and the 4th string together. Then you plug the open 3rd string. And then you play the bass note again, the 5th string. Like that. And then you do this. So here you're playing the open 2nd string. And then you hammer onto the 1st fret of the 2nd string. And then you let go and play the open 2nd string after that. Like that. And then you change the chord to this. So this is a variation of a G major chord. You start by just holding the note on the 2nd fret of the 5th string with the middle finger. On the right hand you plug the 5th string and the open 4th string together. Then you plug the open 3rd string and then you play the bass note, the 5th string again after that. And then you add this part. So here you're adding your little finger onto the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and playing that, where you're playing the open 1st string and then the 2nd string. Like that. So if you play it with the last chord, you have this. And then you have this part. So right after you played this part, you keep the little finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string and you change the position of the middle finger to the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. So now you have a portion of a D major chord. And now you have to play this. So here you're playing the open 4th string, then you're playing the 3rd string, and then you're playing the open 4th string again. Then you're playing this note, the note on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and then you're changing to the 1st fret of the 2nd string. You're holding that with the index finger and playing that note like that. One more time. And then you have this part. So right after playing the last part, you play the 2nd string again, and then you do this. So there you let go of all the notes and you have an open E minor chord, where you're plucking the open 6th string, and then you're plucking the open 3rd string and 2nd string together. Like that. So altogether from the start you have this. And then you have this part. So here you're playing the note on the 4th fret of the 4th string with the little finger. And then you're immediately switching to the C major chord and playing that previous part, which you played on the 1st chord. Like that. And right after that C major chord, repeat the same thing that you played on the next chord. Exactly the same as the last time. And then you have this. So here again you're switching to this chord, the D major chord, and now you're playing it like this. You're playing the open 4th string, then the 3rd string, and then you're doing a brush down stroke on these 3 strings, the 4th, 3rd and 2nd string, like that. So altogether once from the last C major chord, you have that. So that's the whole pre-chorus. I'll play the whole thing once again just to recap. It sounds like this. So that's it for this video. The rest of the parts, the chorus, post-chorus, bridge and everything else are on the separate part 2 video that's there on my Patreon page. If you like my work, I'd recommend trying it out for a month. It costs $4 to join and you get exclusive perks, and moreover it really helps support the channel and allows me to bring more videos like this one to you. A very special thanks and shout out to all my current Patreon members. Really appreciate you guys. And as always, I hope this video helped. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.